My name's Ron Jautz. I told you I've been doing this for a long time. I'm also a senior instructor for New York City Digital Photography Workshops, and we do a lot of things here in conjunction with Adorama. It's really a great partnership, and we also have classes and private instructions, things like that, that we can do with anybody, and we do a few things every month. Tonight we're talking about umbrellas, and but I want to start. I want to start at the beginning. And God said, "Can you all see the screens?" Oh wait, do that? Yeah, okay. I was going to say, because it's probably hard to see with the lights and stuff. But and God said, what did God say? Let there be light. So exactly. Thank you. And the shortly after that, he said, let me create a camera. I don't think that's the official version, but we're going to go with that, okay? And right after that, what's the next thing you do? You go, well, okay, let's manipulate that light, because cameras and light go together, but maybe not always the light that's there. We like to control things, and we want to make the light better. So photography is really kind of a progressive pursuit, right? We all go out and buy a camera, and we start just taking pictures with natural light. And we learn things, and we get good at what we're doing. And then we kind of think, well, what's the next step? So the next step is you have your camera, and you buy a flash. So now you have flash on camera. And boom, see, there we go. Beautiful picture, right? But after a while, you start getting a little bored with that direct flash on camera. In fact, usually what you do is you buy that. And it's a nice picture. It's better, especially if you're shooting something in the dark. You've graduated from available light, but it's a little bit harsh, unless you're Terry Richardson. But so then you want to soften it somehow. And the first thing you do is go out and you buy a little diffuser. This is a Stofan Omni Bounce. They sell them for all different kind of flashes. I actually like these, and you put a little softener on there, and now you can take a picture, and it softens the light just a little bit. Now, your next step is, let's see where it went. Your next step is to go, well, what will make my picture even better is if I get the light off of the camera. So you've probably heard when the flash is right on top of the camera, it's on-camera flash. It kind of is what it says it is. You can buy this little cord that now lets you put the flash off camera. And that will make your pictures even a little bit better. Why? So you've already softened your light a little bit, and now you're moving your light off of direct center over the lens. So what's it do when you're shooting people? And I'll take one little step back. We're going to talk a lot about shooting people tonight, because that's what I do. I'm a people on location specialist, and I'll show you a bunch of pictures, but mostly I'm photographing people. I'm not a food photographer. You can use umbrellas to shoot food, but I've never done that. So we're going to talk mostly about people. So when you move the light off the camera, you change how the shadows are on a face. So instead of a shadow being, if you're like this, directly over the lens, the shadow's going to drop directly under the nose. If you want to get a little more modeling or depth to a face, you move the light off to the side, and now your shadow moves, right? Because if the light's coming from one side, you get a little shadow off to the side. And it gives a little more personality to a face. So that's your first step. And if you've never tried anything like that, I encourage you to try it. You can buy these cords for 30 bucks, 40 bucks, something like that. Sorry?
Would you need that cord, or can you use the light sensor and build in flash?
I'll show you.
Do you ever do that? Or is it something that you
I'll show you. Hang on one second. Or you get a little remote. So I don't like cords.
But this is Canon, right?
They all do it. They all do the same thing.
they all have?
So now I have a remote sensor for the flash. And I can take pictures without having a cord. And see, that's good. I didn't pay you to say that because it goes to the next step, which is, what if we get the flash off our camera even further than this little stretchy cord will go? So I can put the flash way over here and take a picture. Now you go, okay, if I'm trying to improve my photography, I can get the flash off the camera and I can diffuse it. Maybe I don't want to use one of these little softeners. I want to soften it, you know, a bigger softener. And so you can do that with a setup like this and use an umbrella to soften the light. It's got to focus, so there. You know, I've already gotten off of my little presentation, but you'll find that I do that. And please, if you have any questions, you know, just raise your hand, because I find that just in our talking back and forth, and if you have questions, is where the really good stuff for you to learn comes from. Because I'm committed to you guys going away, one, having had a good time, and two, having learned something. So make sure you ask any questions that you have. So when you're looking to improve your photography, it's just intuitively, we want to get away from that hard, direct flash. You move the flash off camera. You soften it with something. This does very minimal softening, but an umbrella will soften it a lot more. So you have a lot of different choices for light modifiers. I'm sure you've heard of some of these, you know, soft boxes and strip banks and Chinese lanterns. I mean, I wrote a bunch of them down there. There's even more than that. But the simplest one is the umbrella. And umbrellas are, you know, more for just when it's raining. Although they, you know, they come in handy for that too. If you're out on location and you want to keep your gear dry, I have done that. So yeah, exactly. Well, that's why you carry multiple umbrellas with you when you're on a shoot. So, and with umbrellas, there are multiple choices. In fact, if you go to the Adorama website and just put in the search bar umbrellas, you'll get 652 different results. Yeah. Now, I will give one little caveat. Part of that is it'll say there's a little thing here that Adorama sells. It's an umbrella adapter, and that shows up in part of that. So maybe there's 620 different umbrellas. So you have lots of choices, and we don't want to go there yet. And I'll show you a whole bunch of different ones that the store lent me to be able to show you. But you have umbrellas that are white. You have some that are silver. You have some that the surface is smooth, and some the surface is pebbly or textured. You have some that are, you know, you can almost see through this umbrella, and you have some that have a black backing, so you can't see through, like this. And we'll get there. I'll get that. That's, I use actually a lot of different umbrellas. There's even an umbrella they call, actually, it's not made anymore, but it was called a zebra umbrella. Now, why, you know, to me that makes me think, oh, this black and white, and each one of these little panels is, you know, one's black, one's white. Why would you do that? But actually it was white and silver. So it was kind of a cross. You can still find them used, but they don't make them new anymore, and I guess they figured that it was, you know, why do that? Well, the point is to give a little bit of snap. So a silver umbrella, I mean, just think about anything silver is going to be more reflective than anything white. So there's different degrees of reflectiveness that umbrellas have. So the other thing is there are different sizes of umbrellas. Everything from little tiny umbrellas that are about a foot in diameter to umbrellas that are 10 feet in diameter. Well, an Octobank is a softbox, but they have what they're called parabolic umbrellas, and they're like 7 to 10 feet. I mean, they're huge umbrellas. We'll actually talk a little bit about that. And each umbrella has a different use, and what it comes down to is the size and how you diffuse the light going through or reflected off of an umbrella. So, right, a bigger umbrella will have more surface to bounce light off of. A smaller umbrella, you know, would have a smaller surface. Like this is a pretty small one. This is a 36-inch umbrella. And just think of that and the light bouncing off of that umbrella. I know you can't see in the back, so I'm going to move this. So the light bouncing off of this umbrella would be much different than if this were bouncing off of a 5-foot umbrella. And it all works in degrees of softness of how you're bouncing the light or shooting through an umbrella, and how it manipulates and modifies the light that's going through the umbrella. So different ways to use umbrellas. Of course, you bounce into it and let the light come out. That gives you a different quality of light than if you shoot through an umbrella. And I'll show you some examples, and then we're actually going to do some shooting. We'll do a little bit of shooting so you can see on the screens what some different lights do. I love umbrellas. I shoot people on location, so I travel quite a bit. Umbrellas are small and compact. I mean, I can take this off and it folds up. It's lightweight. It's easy to carry. They're inexpensive. You can find, I checked the website last night. You can even find umbrellas used, and Adorama has umbrellas used for $8. They have brand new ones for $8.99. So, and here I'll tell you a little secret. I like used umbrellas, and I'll tell you why. And I have a couple that are really old, but as these things get older, they kind of go yellow. You know, I mean, all our clothes do, right? But just with age, they get a little yellow. Now, think of what that does to skin tones when you're photographing people. If you have just a little bit of yellow in there, it kind of warms up because it's going to reflect the light, and it warms up your subject. It's not quite as critical because now in Lightroom or Photoshop you can change that very easily, but it's still, I'm old school. I like to get it right in the camera. So if I can, you know, do that. So I have it's a 48-inch umbrella, and it's just got this little yellow patina to it, and it's really beautiful to photograph people. So sometimes if you look for used umbrellas, look for ones that have that little bit of yellow. And they're cheap enough you can buy, do your own tests, and then see which you like better. Umbrellas do have a downside, and I just want to be very clear up front with this because I want you to be careful. If you buy some umbrellas and go shooting and you have a friend and you're out at Coney Island on the beach and you want to just kind of soften that light a little bit and the offshore breeze kicks up, I mean, forget about it. Your light stand, your flash, everything's going to go flying because this is like a sail on a sailboat. So you have to be really careful. If I'm shooting outside, I usually will have an assistant physically hold it. And then there's times where we've actually not been able to shoot with umbrellas and we've had to go to different, maybe a soft box. Soft box doesn't capture the wind quite as much. The other downside with umbrellas that I hear a lot of people complain about, and to me it's not a problem because, again, photographing people on location, I like this aspect of it. Umbrellas, by their design, again, flash is here, it's bouncing light. They get a lot of spill, and you can see that. I mean, even if you're walking down the street in a rainstorm, your pants are going to get wet and stuff like that. So the umbrellas can be sloppy. The light can get sloppy. Now, to me, that's an advantage. When I'm photographing somebody, and I'll show you some examples, when I'm photographing somebody on location, maybe we're in some CEO's office down on Wall Street, and I want to light this person, and the bulk of the light is landing on the person, but I also want to get a little detail in the office. The spill that comes helps light everything else, so it actually is an advantage for me. But now think if you're shooting something very specific, maybe if you're trying to use an umbrella to shoot food and you want to control your light, this is probably not the way to go. Although later I'll show you some tricks on how to control it, even with an umbrella like this. When you want ultimate control, that's when you go to a soft box. A lot of fashion shooters, where's my fashion shooter? I don't know if you've used a beauty dish before. That gives you a little more control, although it has a little bit of sloppiness to it as well, a little bleeding. So just to be aware when you're using umbrellas of how to make use of that spillover effect. So where some people say that's a downside, I kind of like it. It works to my advantage. So we've already talked about all the choices. It can be overwhelming. So where do you start? How do you know? You go, great, okay, I like shooting people, my kids, whatever, and I don't like that flash on camera, really hard light. Let me buy an $8 umbrella and soften that light a little bit. So you start with what you love to shoot. So if you love shooting people, and you love a nice soft light like I do, then you would gravitate toward a certain kind of umbrella. If you like really snappy, kind of high contrast fashion images, it might give you a reason to go to a different umbrella. And again, think about this. We mentioned it a minute before. So something really soft would be, shooting through something like that. You can actually see through it, and it just lets the light go through. Something that's more reflective would be like a silver umbrella, so that light's going to come out a little harder with more contrast. And so you find things like that used often in fashion. You can get away with it photographing men. Most women tend to photograph better with a softer light. So I tend to photograph women with a white umbrella instead of a silver. But there's uses for everything depending on what you're trying to accomplish. So I'm going to show you a few pictures of that I've done, these are all shot with umbrellas. And I like to do one light because we have one sun, right? We deal with one light. So I think it's natural for a person to have one light on them. To me, it's really important too when you're a little closer up and you see the reflection in the eyes. I don't know if you know this, but like any magazine you see in the grocery store and the newsstand, you can tell how they lit the model by looking in their eyes, and you can see the reflection and you can tell what they used. Oftentimes with umbrellas, you might even see these ribs reflected in their eyes. If it's square, you know they shot with a softbox. If it's octagonal, they used a big octabank. So you can always tell, and also the positioning of where the light is reflected in the eye tells you where the light was. So this shot was one umbrella. It was probably a 48-inch umbrella. Personally, I like to shoot through umbrellas because it's a little softer light, and I kind of part of my style is very much like this photo. It's a soft light, very natural. It could very easily be part of the room because I don't like to make my lighting noticeable. I like it just to highlight what I want it to. So someone had asked how I shoot. You asked how I shoot. I like to shoot through umbrellas. I don't do a lot of bouncing unless I need to control the light more. But like here, we're in a museum. I don't really need to control the light. I want it to spill out. Now, this shot has one umbrella on the person to light his face, and then there's a little kicker light in the background to light the painting. And I do that often in my work. So this is the same exact thing. It's one big umbrella. Actually, this shot was done with a big 72-inch umbrella, so a 6-foot. Think of an umbrella exactly like this, but it's 6 feet. And this is what that looks like. So this takes up so much room, we're not going to shoot with it in here today, but you can, just to show you some of the options that we have. And I mean, look how big this thing is.
But this is not $8.
No, this is not $8.
60 bucks?
It's global.
That's great.
So is that all it is, $60? Because
Yeah,
There's versions of this that are $600.
well, yeah, there's some, and there's some bigger that go for $1,000. You know, the 12-foot ones. Imagine this twice as big.
Does it come with diffusion? No.
But-
Probably not, right?
No, but that's a good point, and you just reminded me to talk about that. But I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. All right. But I mean, isn't that cool?
Yeah.
I mean, look at that, and just think you have a light on here, filling that up. Man, what a beautiful light. Now, it's also so big that it gets softer. Even though it's silver, it gets soft. And the other thing that's cool about really big umbrellas, when you come really close, I'm going to knock over a light, right, Seth? When you come really close to somebody and just keep the umbrella just out of camera range, now look at how that light will wrap around somebody. And it's just a gorgeous light. Now, I'll show you a couple more shots done with this umbrella, although mine is white. This is a silver interior, which I think is very cool, and for $60 I might pick one of these up. But the one I have is white, and I use it both ways. I use it as a bounce, but I also shoot through it. So this is shot through the umbrella. Now, why do I do that? Here's one downside to shooting through. I like to shoot through an umbrella because it gives you more spill, because see, look at the shape of it, right? It gives you more spill than if you bounced out of it. So if you bounced out of it, it's keeping the light kind of in this channel. Obviously, it's going to widen as you go out, right? Because, I don't know, is anybody here a mathematician? It's all the physics of light, but I don't do math. So, but I just know how it works because you can see it, and we'll take some pictures here in a little bit so you can see what I'm talking about. But when you shoot through an umbrella, you get more spill. And I like that to help soften the light across the whole image like this one. So this is one big umbrella on the guy. It's fairly close. You can see that it's fairly close because, well, this monitor's not, this isn't showing as much of the picture, the real contrast, but you can see a little bit of the shadow on the side of the guy's face. So the umbrella is close enough that it's wrapping the light around his face, but leaving a little definition, all right? And then I have some lights in the background lighting up the rest of the room. That's a big atrium in a bank. So here's a shot I just did a couple months ago. Yeah, maybe, no, when was this? Last month, last year? Yeah, already, wow. So a magazine cover, and they wanted to shoot in the subway. And now I would love to have had my big 6-foot umbrella, right? But it might not be a smart idea to do that in Times Square. So I had an umbrella this size, and I had my assistant holding it. I wanted to talk just a little bit, and this image is a good example because we talked about getting close to somebody with an umbrella and the light wraps around. So distance matters, no matter what kind of light you're using, if it's an umbrella or just an open flash in a bowl or even a softbox. The closer you are to your subject, the softer the light will be. And think about that. If you're really close, it's going to wrap around, right? If you're further away, that light becomes more directional. And you can see it in this picture because it's a small light source and it's probably 10 or 12 feet away because we had to be able to see the subway coming by. We kept a small umbrella because we didn't have a permit. I'm sorry to say, we did this guerrilla style. So we just went and hoped the cops weren't going to kick us out. In fact, I have a blog on my website. I wrote a blog about this picture. I said, I promise not to get your CEO arrested. So, but actually the cops never bothered us. I guess they could care less right in Times Square. So by being away, you can see that light on his face looks a little bit contrasty. It's a little bit harsh. And that's because of the distance. A small umbrella, 12 feet away, is going to produce a sharper light than if it's 4 feet away. I kind of do things instinctively when I'm lighting. I light, I'll show you what we have. I have, mostly on location, I use dyno lights, and they have modeling lights, so I can see roughly what the lights are doing. So I'm not big on the mathematic ratios of, oh, you know, my key light is 1 stop and my fill light is 1 to 3 ratio below. You know, I know what that means. I can explain to you, but I kind of light intuitively because I like things very natural. And the modeling light lets me see that. So I don't really worry. But here's a rule of thumb. If whatever size of your umbrella, right, you can bring that in as close. So if you have a 36-inch umbrella, you can get in like 3 feet from your subject. If you have a 10-foot umbrella, you know, maybe 10 feet. Although I would break that rule. Photography for me is all about breaking rules, right? And just do what it looks good to you. So you could bring a big umbrella even closer. Hello, my mom's calling. Here's another simple shot. 1 light, 1 umbrella, and it's probably a little bigger than this one. I think this is a 42-inch umbrella. This was actually shot some time ago, but the umbrella is very close, and she's looking right into it. Now this is one of those, I don't know if you can see on the monitor, but see the reflection in her eyeball? You can see exactly where the light is by that reflection. And so, you know, go to the newsstand and check out magazines and look for those reflections. You can see exactly how they lit any photograph. So again, this is 1 light. our eyes are used to seeing one light because we have the sun, and you know, if we had two suns, then I'd light things with two lights. But and same thing here, one small umbrella. Sometimes this is the Walgreens in Times Square, so really busy place, and you don't want to take a lot of room. If I had a big softbox or an Octabank, I would need a C-stand, and I'd need sandbags, and I'd need assistants to carry all this stuff. I can go in kind of quick and easy, guerrilla style, with just a collapsible light stand, throw that up, one umbrella, boom, done. It's fast, easy, in and out of there, do a beautiful portrait for the Walgreens magazine, and it took 10 minutes. Now, think outside of the box for a minute. If you have, I should just leave this off, right? If you have a white umbrella, you can bounce light, but what else can this act as? It can act as a reflector, right? So I had an assignment to photograph, this is a clerk at the Supreme Court, and I had scouted this out, and I was going to shoot up by the columns of the building. So I get my subject, and we're up there, and I pull out the camera, and the police jump all over me. And they said, you can't take pictures on the grounds of the Supreme Court. And okay, well, where can I legally take pictures? They go, you have to be out on the sidewalk. So I go over to, I don't know if you recognize this, but anytime you see a news report on TV, this is where the reporters all stand. They stand there and do their stand-up, and it's this angle, and it's just off to the side. And so I went over there to do the picture, but since I had scouted out my image, I didn't have any lights with me or anything, but there was an NBC News guy sitting there waiting, you know, to report on whatever, and they had their lighting set up with a hot light in an umbrella. So I asked him if he could help me, and he took his umbrella off, and he stood just to the side and used the umbrella. So this is all available light, but the umbrella that he had, a white umbrella, bounced light back into the guy. So umbrellas can be really versatile, and I've used them before like that. So, you know, think if you have a model, and I'm lighting you here, some of that spillover from this umbrella is going to pop off of that umbrella. I mean, you can light from there too, but sometimes that's overpowering. I mean, it depends on how you soften your lights. That's a good spot for another little trick that I do to soften it even more. Sometimes I get to a place where this isn't soft enough. So just over here you can buy diffusing material. It's called soft spun. And what I do is in my location kit, I carry clothespins. And I have numerous sheets of this softening diffusing material, and I just clip it here, so I create another layer of softness. So again, every situation is different, but there's different things you can do like that to soften your images even more. I don't have one to show, but you mentioned something that they do with umbrellas now. It's kind of a cross between a softbox and an umbrella. So you get an umbrella like this, or actually it's usually one of these black ones, and oftentimes the interior is silver. And there's a diffusion panel that goes, it clips to these little nubs on the ribs, and it covers, so now you bounce into it and the light's coming through a diffusion panel. And Adorama has a dozen different kinds of those as well. And that's really nice because now you're bouncing the light, it's softening, and then it's softening again through, and you can put it right on somebody. What's nice about that, it gives you a little more control. The control, again, see, in the black, doesn't let anything spill out, so the light's all contained. In the white umbrella, and a lot of these umbrellas, you can take the black off. So you can use it two ways. And with the white, you see, you get, even if I'm bouncing it, you get spillover that's going to bounce off the walls and the ceiling, and you get that spill that I like on location, but sometimes you don't want it, so you put the black on. Here's a little trick too. If you want a light, you want more control over your light, and you have your flash in here, and it's spilling too much. If you're shooting through an umbrella, just leave the black half on. So now you're shooting through only half of the umbrella. Kind of hard to see, but you get what I mean. And so that's another little trick that very few people actually ever think of doing. It's another way to control the light. The other thing you can do, and I do this too, I carry black cloth with me in my location kit, and you can always, gobo the light that way. So, all right. See, I'm going off on tangents, things I didn't even think of talking about, but it's fun stuff, and hopefully you can learn and play and experiment with things like this. Again, this is just one umbrella, fairly close to the woman, but balanced to the daylight of this atrium. This is the Seton Hall Law School has a big, huge atrium, and it's all white, and the light just bounces around like crazy, and it's beautiful. But it causes shadows on the people. Think about a big, huge, maybe you're down at Brookfield Place or something like that. The light is beautiful, but it gives shadows in your eyes because the light's all above you. An umbrella will match the softness of the light in an atrium or any room and let you still see what's going on with their eyes. This is just another example. I threw this one in because this is my big 6-foot umbrella, and again, I'm shooting through it because I wanted the spill to be able to light the walls behind the guy. So this whole shot was shot with just one light. There's other ways you can do it. We talked about shooting through an umbrella is very soft, but bouncing, it's not quite as soft. The other thing, some people think of this as a downfall. When you shoot through an umbrella, where's my white one? When you shoot through an umbrella, there's a good deal of light loss, right? Because you're shooting through something, so you're going to lose power. That doesn't concern me too much when I'm shooting with a big strobe. But if I have to shoot with a little speedlight, then you have to be concerned a little bit about that. And that may be an instance where you'd rather bounce it. And I'll show you here in a minute. This photograph is done with a 6-foot silver umbrella, and it's right behind me. So you can see there's no shadow on it because I'm lighting her from directly over my head. I'm actually in front of the light photographing the model. But you can see it's a little edgier. It's a little harder light. It's not quite as soft as some of the other shots or as this one. Now this is the same umbrella, but it's shot so it's softer. No, in fact, no, I'm sorry. This is, the other one was a silver umbrella. This is a white one shot through. So you can see the difference there with the silver and the white. See how the silver, it's just snappier, a little more contrasty, and then that's very soft. All right, I'm going to put this umbrella back up here. Any questions so far? No? Good? Okay. All right, so now let's get into the meat of this. So what are the effects? If we just had a light like that and we shot it against a plain background, that's kind of what it'll look like. It's very direct, very harsh. You can see the pattern of the light. It's very bright. And then what if I put a simple diffuser? And I like these little diffusers. So if I just put that on there, watch what it does to the light. So that's a big difference, right? It diffuses the light, it makes it spread out. You can also see that it weakens the light a little bit. Check that out again. So see how far the throw is of a direct flash? And this will weaken it, but it makes it so much softer, which depending on the lighting effect you want, if you're, for me again, if I'm shooting people, I like it to be a little softer. But now if we go the progression that we talked about earlier and put an umbrella on it. So now this is a shot, just done the flashes like that, through a shoot-through umbrella, obviously, just like this one. But what I want you to notice here, and again, now these monitors aren't as good as mine at home, but so in this setup, notice the light is at the top half of the umbrella. Most of the light is coming through right here. Down here, you don't have any light coming. So I just want you to be aware, if you start playing with umbrellas, and most of us have a speedlight, and umbrellas are $8 to $15 depending on the kind you get, like this. And if you start playing with it, just be aware that it doesn't light up the entire umbrella. Now part of that is, look how close it is to the inside of the umbrella. So just make note of that. Now here's the same shot. The flash is in the same location, but it's got this little diffuser on it. So see how it spreads the light out? Now you're using more of the umbrella, and so you're getting the advantage of the umbrella for throwing light, but look at the fall off, right? Now the other thing I want you to notice, there's more light on behind it than in front of it. So you just have to be aware of what your equipment will do to the light and how much power. So think of if you're shooting a portrait, you know, it's nice to get a rhythm, and it's kind of like, oh, turn your head. Where if you do something like this and you don't have an extra battery pack on it, like, you know, I have an extra battery pack. We'll talk about that in a minute. You take a picture and you go, okay, hold on a second, my flash is regenerating, or you start talking to them, you go, click. Oh, what'd you think of the weather today? It's pretty nice today. Oh, okay, wait, we're ready, click. You know, you don't want to do that when you're taking a portrait, right? You want to get into a flow and a rhythm. So just be aware of what your light is doing when you're shooting with a little flash. So another way to combat that problem is to move the flash back. So see where it was before? Is in close. You probably don't want to do that when you're using a little strobe like this. Back it up and let that light hit the full size of the umbrella. Now again, you're going to lose power, but it's a really beautiful soft light. Now here's that same shot. If you notice, this is just the bare head. The next one has this little diffusion on it. Look how much light loss there is, because not only do you have light loss of the diffusion, you're further away from the umbrella, and light works in ratios. Again, I don't do math, but this is the visual representation of that. You lose a lot of light, and it may be beautifully soft. I mean, that's actually a white wall, but it gets really soft, and you can allow for that in your exposure in how you have your camera set. But look at how much brighter it is bouncing using a setup like that. So I thought we'd try some bouncing. So here's bouncing, no diffusion on the flash, and it's a beautiful light. And then I moved it in closer. Again, no diffusion on it, but you can just see that it's a little stronger. And there's the diffusion what's interesting there is the quality of the light is still really beautiful, but again, look at the loss of power. Yep. All right, and this little thing is just called a Stoffen Omni Bounce, and I love them for certain things. What else do I have? Oh, I don't have in that. Okay, so what I was going to do now is, so this is the setup that I was just showing. And I don't, because, you know, it eats up the batteries. Even when you have a battery pack, it slows things down. But I will shoot a lot with something very similar. And you can just see the difference. This is still a battery strobe, and it's called a flash point. And I bought this here at Adorama. This is the battery charger that goes for it. The thing that I think is really cool is this battery can go to my Canon flash, or it can go to the flash point. The flash point kit also comes with a remote control that you can change the power settings from the camera. So, you know, if you've got your 6-foot umbrella way up high, you don't have to pull it down and figure you can just change it. So, but this is basically the same thing as this, just more powerful and faster recycling times. And just in the interest of time, I'm not going to set it up. You can all kind of see that it's the same thing, right? I think this is like 350 bucks or something. And yeah, and actually some of these are 500 bucks. So, although they make off-brand ones that are good as well. So I have different kits that I use. Like if I just have a quick magazine assignment and there's not a lot of budget for it, but it sounds like a fun job, I can just take this in a camera bag and my camera and a light stand with an umbrella, and I've got the shot. So. But what we're going to do is switch over to the strobes I normally use, and we're going to see if we can figure out how to tether and actually shoot some things so you guys can see the difference in what we're doing. And let me get rid of that. And I'm going to do that just for safety. It's not going to stay there. Okay.
It'll be all right.
All right. And we're going to minimize Keynote and go into. All right, so I have my flash and my. I'm going to switch to the shoot-through umbrella, which is what I prefer. Probably 70, if not 75% of what I do is shoot-through versus the bouncing. So a typical setup would be something like, you got somebody sitting here, you get the flash, would various ways obviously to trigger the flash. I have lots of them. I don't like cords. I mentioned you can plug in a cord and have that go to your camera, but I find cords are there to be tripped over. So I use either pocket wizards, which you may have heard of before, or this is something I bought here years ago called MicroSync Digital. And what I like about it is the transmitter on top of the camera is really small. So I take this and I plug it in the back of my light. And now this little thing will trigger. Well, and I say that and it's not working, right? There it goes. So I can that just triggers the light. So you want to get a light reading. Now, this is for demonstration purposes. I'll be honest with you, I rarely use a light meter anymore. I kind of intuitively know roughly what it's going to be, and then with digital, in the old days we used to take Polaroids, wait 60 seconds, look at a Polaroid, then make some adjustments, and now it's just you all have digital cameras, it's on the fly. Adjust the lighting, take another, take another reading, and let me see if I can do this. It's actually strong, this light, but we'll see if we can get it done. Test run with tethering to we're going to see if we can get this to work. You knew that was coming. That's what you get for being in the front row, right? Now, it's hard to see with these lights and this light, which is yeah, okay, I think that's better. Can you still hear me? Okay, good. So you can see, wait, where's my makeup stylist? But it's very easy when you have a light with a modeling light. Now, when you're starting out and maybe you don't want to buy, I mean, these are Dynalite Uni 400 Juniors is the name of the strobe. They're not terribly expensive. I think they're 500 bucks roughly. I haven't had to buy them in a while, but really good quality. I travel a lot. These things travel well. And it has a modeling light. If you're just using your strobe for the top of your camera, or even the flash point, it doesn't have a modeling light, so you can't quite see. But in this age of digital, you take a test picture and you go, oh, that's a little harsh. I'm going to move the umbrella over here. It might just take a little more effort. Where with the modeling light, I can kind of see what I want before I shoot. So I guess that you can get a sense of what's going on. The things I want you to look at from that perspective, and then we'll take a picture and I'll show it on the screen. But watch the shadow. Watch the shadow on the side of her face and the side of her nose. As the light moves around, see how much softer it gets? Now you can even do, what they call Rembrandt lighting, right? Light it, look right here. So, only half of her face is lit. Show it from the other side, right? And You can see that side's all lit, and you just move the flash around and you get the shadow. The shadows are more interesting. It defines the face a little bit more. So you find what's nice and what you like. You play with it to go up and down because it's going to change the shadow no matter where you put the light. You know, classic, probably the classic starting point if you're going to experiment with some of this stuff. Maybe put your flash 45 degrees, 45 degrees. So we would put the flash down a little bit and take it up a little bit. Now, to me, well, let me see. Let me see if this tethering works, and I can show you what I'm talking about. Let me drop that down. So let's see if this works.
What are your settings?
There it is. Okay. So, sorry, your question?
Just settings.
So, because the light's really close and it's a powerful light, the settings don't really matter. But my meter reading gave me f22 at 200 ISO. Okay, I could drop that to 100 and save a stop, but we're fine. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but in moving the light up, what does it do? It gets a little further away from her. Watch the light on her face. As the light comes down, see it gets stronger? Can you see that from where you're sitting? So I kind of saw that the light was diminished, so I opened up a stop. The meter said, the meter reading when the light was low was f22. I could see the change, so I opened up a stop and got a pretty good exposure. It's a tad dark, but we can deal with that. But I mainly want you to see the shadow, right? Now let's do one where we bring the light around just a little more frontal, because I think that other one had a little too much shadow. Let's see if we can still stay tethered. So, where's my? I'm going to find a pointing stick because I thought that worked well. I like having a little pointing stick, but see how this whole side of her face is a little more lit. We still have nice shadow. In fact, that's really beautiful. Look at the see the darkness. The shadow on the nose starts running in. Her eyes a little bit dark. That's simply from moving the umbrella. What, we moved it maybe 6 or 8 inches. So this is the type of thing I like with a modeling light I could see happen, where if you're doing it with just a strobe through an umbrella, you might have to take a few test shots. Now let's try something. Let's see what happens if we flip this around. Okay, anybody notice what happened to the light? Now remember, usually an umbrella is going to be more, it's going to be stronger being reflective. But now also it's a good 16 inches further away, right? Oh, you saw that, right? So it's a different quality light. So if we move it into about the same place it was, distance-wise, let's see what we do now. Yep, so let me open up the stop. This is where you play the Jeopardy theme song, right? Waiting for the. Here's my pointer. So it's the same light, a little different positioning, but you can see the shadow. I mean, all of this is very subtle And these monitors aren't the best to be looking at these type of things, but the shadow on the side of her nose is just a little stronger. And that's because the light is bouncing off, coming a little stronger off the umbrella. Let's try one more thing. Are you good, or do you want me to switch models?
Whatever you prefer.
No, I just, if you needed to see, but you can see because it's right there, right?
Yeah, I'm watching you do your stuff.
So we're gonna switch to a silver. Now you can already see, without even taking a picture, how much brighter that is. Look at that.
Being there.
In fact, we'll move it out just a little bit before we blind you. I'm gonna change back to 16. So let's see the difference here. Now I went up a stop and a half. So you can see again the quality of the light. Look also at the shadow in the back. That's one way to really tell of what your light is doing and how harsh your light is. And maybe harsh is the wrong word. It's just a different quality, because harsh has a negative connotation, right? But maybe you like to use this kind of light for something. But you have to be aware of when your subject is sitting so close to a background, you have to be aware of what the light's going to do to cause shadows. And this is a perfect example of that. So the shoot through or the bounce, the white one, it's fairly soft. You see a little bit of shadow, but it's fairly soft. The silver, it's a great example for the contrast that's in the light. Now, let's see what happens if we use a bigger umbrella. So this is a 32-inch umbrella. And now let's see if we go to a slightly larger one. This one's a little different too. It's not a silver. It's hard to see. Well, that's better. So it's a white, but it's more of a satin white. It's not just a white translucent. It's kind of a satiny white. So it's going to be a little between the silver and a translucent white. Bless you. You can see already, just from even from where you're sitting, you can see the shadow on the side of her face is softer. So I'm going to open up a little bit, probably there. So again, you know, look at how it's different from the image that's on the screen now. So there's and yes, granted, this one's half stop, 3/4 of a stop underexposed, but you can see the difference in the quality of the light and where to look. Again, the background shadow, but also the shadow here, the shadow there. Just watch the difference. So that's a bounce umbrella, the white reflective. That's the silver, and that's the satin, bigger umbrella. Now let's just see if we can get away with putting this closer. Getting closer, right? It's going to be the physics of light, whatever math goes with that. It's going to be brighter. Oh, let me open up. I went too far. Okay, so this one should be a little better. So we have to go back 2, right? So that's beautiful. That's a beautiful light. Coming in closer. Watch what it does to the shadows, how the light wraps around the face. Can you see how the light wraps, just so you don't miss out either. That's a little underexposed, you know, without metering each time. Now, but that's another good point to be aware of when you're shooting with umbrellas is the light fall off. You could see it in the series of pictures that I did that showed the light changing when we had the umbrellas in different configurations. Be aware of that when you're shooting, of how much light will bleed off into your background. It's especially critical when you have a plain background, and I mean, maybe you like shadows, maybe you don't, but just be aware of what the light's doing. When you're looking at pictures, when you're taking test shots, if you don't have a modeling light and you can't see it, and you're taking test shots, be very aware of every part of the picture. Look to see what the shadow's doing under the chin, the side of the face, the background. Look to see how it's off the hair. You know, you as the photographer are responsible for everything in your photo. So make sure that you see the things like the shadow, and you don't take the picture and then when you go to get a print made, you go, oh, I never saw that shadow. So you want to see it while you're taking the picture. Yeah?
If you want to decrease the shadow, would you mount something else there? Would you decrease the shadow?
Well, there's a variety of ways of doing it. The best way, I think, you move the subject a little. I mean, we have a small little space to work in. I normally wouldn't have somebody this close to a background. And then your next question is, yeah, but I like that color gray. So then you light the background separately from lighting the person.
Well, I'm asking because I did a shoot once and somebody was on a couch kind of doing an interview, and the light was nice in there, but it was a very hard shadow on the couch. But they had to stay that close.
Right. So what she said is a shadow in a portrait she did, the shadow kind of was noticeable down on part of the couch that they were sitting on, and they were sitting on the couch. I like doing things with one light. You can clean up shadows with additional lighting, but you have to be careful what it does. If you have one light, you get one shadow. If you have two lights, now you have two shadows. And to me, there's nothing worse than looking at a portrait and seeing cross shadows. So you want to be really careful what you do with that, and how you deal with it. How would I deal with that? We talked before about the bigger the source. I'd go to a bigger umbrella. And I'd come in a little higher. By coming higher, okay, watch what the shadow does. Going higher, where does the shadow go? It goes down, right? You can move the shadow, you can see the shadow behind her, by changing how you do it. Now, if you have a light this high and you're doing a portrait, you know, that might not be the best looking light because it, you know, you got big shadows under here. So what do? I just happen to have seen this hiding in the corner. You know, look at what it does to her face. This is a silver and a gold, but, you know, so you clean up that shadow. Now, personally, I would never use a silver because it becomes very noticeable in the eyes. And again, think of a magazine cover and you look at somebody's eyes and you see two lights because the silver is so bright, it's noticeable. If I had a white one, and you can always feather it down, you know, now it's just a little highlight. It's not in your face noticeable. So to answer your question, which again was, you know, a shadow on the back of the couch, bigger umbrella, a little higher angle. If you need a fill light, then, you know, a little fill light. I see this here. I'm big on, because I do a lot of location stuff, I don't carry a lot of equipment. I do makeshift things. So I happen to see this. So it's almost hard to see from my angle this close. I can see it, but look at how it fills in the shadow under her nose. In fact, we'll do a quick picture of that so you can see it on the screen. No, that's fine. Not yet. Now you can hold it. Put it right up close. Okay, so see, yeah, that wouldn't make such a nice portrait. But now, just a simple little white reflector, piece of foam core you go down to the art supply store and buy. See the difference? Now you go, well, now it's a little boring, it's too much. So you move it down, or you just put it on one side. All these little, so here, hold it about like that. So all these little subtle maneuvers will change. Now watch the shadow on the side of her face. See? Simple little tricks. I've been in offices where I've just gone to the copier, taken copier paper and taped a bunch of them up and used that as a reflector. I mean, it looks a little cheesy, but you know, when you gotta do what you gotta do, right? So that was in my earlier days. Now I can afford to come to Adorama and buy a reflector. And these reflectors are, I mean, these are cool. You know, anybody have one of these and it folds up in your camera bag? It's with you all the time, and you need just a little pop of light, and you go, boom, right there. You know, so this reminds me, because it's gold on one side, silver on the other. The reflectors I have are white and silver. I don't bother with the gold. They make umbrellas that are gold on the inside. We saw the ones that are silver. They make them that are gold. And you can see that's gold. Personally, I think it, and why do they do that? They do it to give a little hint of the sun, right? I think it's too much. It looks fake when I use it. Well, I don't use it. It looks fake when it's used. And nowadays in the computer, if you want to warm some skin tone up, it's easier to do than doing it with a gold reflector. It's nice though. Look at that. There. Oh, you're in the spotlight. So.
Finally.
So, but you know, everybody's different, and that's one of the beauties of what we do is we all have our vision, we have our style, we have what we like and don't like. So, you know, maybe you like a gold reflector and can use it wonderfully, better than I can. So there's all sorts of things out there. Yes, question?
How do you consider external light when working with studio lighting? Like I have a little small home studio, I have a window in the room, I have light overhead because it's an actual
Right.
room versus a studio. Like, should I be covering the window? Should I be keeping the light off and having a different kind of light? Like, how do I make sure that the studio lighting I'm using is reflected in the image with ambient lighting?
Is the question is kind of mixed light sources in a small studio. So you've got window light coming in, you've got your studio lights. Are you using hot lights or strobes? Strobes. So my answer there is you can cover the windows because it gives you a little more control. My bigger problem with multiple light sources is color temperature. So you want to make sure, and most strobes are balanced to daylight, but you want to make sure if you want to have that much control of your color balance for your light sources. But the second question, or the second answer to that question is your strobes are more powerful oftentimes in the daylight. Now maybe if it's direct sun, they'll compete, but you can, you know, most strobes will go off at 1/200th of a second. Even your on-camera flash will go off at 1/200th of a second. And if you have the power setting up enough, if you're shooting 1/200th of a second at f11, you're not going to have to worry about daylight. But control, the simple thing, I've had that situation in my past, a little small studio with windows. Just have big black cloth, or you take, well, it's behind the monitor, but it's a V-flat. It's just a big foam core board. It's 4 feet by 8 feet, and it's black on one side and white on the other. And you can use them for a lot of different things, including blocking a window. So that's how I'd handle that. Any other questions? Okay. So you get a sense of what the umbrellas are doing and some of the things to look for in the umbrellas. And you know what? How are we doing on time, everybody? Oh, okay. We have plenty of time. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to break out that. Can I break out the big one?
Oh,
Yeah, the big umbrella.
It's right there.
Okay. Yeah. So
Need help?
we're going to do something fun here, so you can just see how this works. So we've seen a white umbrella shooting through, and we've seen a white umbrella bouncing. We've seen a satin umbrella, and we've seen a silver umbrella. Before we go to the big one, I'm going to pull one other out. And this will show you the control. So I talked earlier about why somebody, you want to sit down? Yeah. Instead of being under the hot lights. I'm sorry. Yes, yes, for our model. Very good, sir. So a lot of people will use soft boxes because you have more control. Now think of a soft box, right? You've all seen them. They've got dark sides. The light is in the inside, and there's usually a baffle in between, and then there's a front screen. Sometimes that screen is recessed, and there's a black edge to it. Sometimes it's flush. Just think about that again. If it's recessed, it controls the light a little more. So an umbrella, as we've seen, the umbrella will scatter the light a little bit. The softbox is much more controlled. And they come in all different sizes. I mean, I have one that's just 12 inches. It's like 8 by 12. So it's just a little tiny thing that's fun to put like right here. You can also use it as a hair light sometimes. But umbrellas can also give you more control depending on the type that you get. So this is a Pro Photo. They call it a deep umbrella. And you'll see right off what I mean. Remember the other umbrellas? Seth, would you mind holding this for me just real quick? So, see how wide this is? You can see how the light will fall off the edges. And then see this one, see how it's much more focused, if you will. And that's exactly what it does to the light. It bounces, but it focuses it. So you don't get that spill. Or you will get a little spill, but it's going to be further away. So you can control the light a lot more. And this you'll find concentrates your light, so it makes your light a little stronger. It makes the shadows a little stronger, and it gives you more control of the spill. So there's an umbrella for every occasion. So let me just put that one away. That's a, yeah, 189, I think, something like that. I don't think on this one you can take the black off. Yeah. You can on, I'm not sure on that model, that's a Pro Photo, but some, oh, that's an Elechrome. Some of the deep umbrellas, you can get a scrim for the front of it, which gives it a little more softer. But you know, then there's your trade-off again, because the light's going to hit that softness and spill out a little bit more. So this, this is fun. I'm having fun. I hope you guys are having fun. How close am I? We might not be able to do this. How am I up top? I love big lights like this. That's, yeah, I mean, especially this close. I mean, look at this. That's just gorgeous. You'll see photos. I'm sure you've all seen photos where umbrellas of this size or bigger are used as a background. And, you know, so they have another light on the model, and a light like this is a background because it's got a very cool shape. So how am I in terms of the laptop? Okay, all right. So now, obviously, I can't take the picture from there, but I can take the picture from here. Now, the light, I'm going to block a significant amount of that light. So ideally, I would back it up just a little bit more. You can raise it up too. But I kind of like this direct. You want to be, or you want me to pick somebody else?
Whatever
I'm sorry.
you want. It's up
So, no, okay, if you don't mind.
I don't want you like the difference. Okay. And then the same
Yeah.
process.
So, I mean, look at her face. You can see. Can you see? This light is just wrapping around. Beautiful. I get so excited about this because the light is so beautiful. And you know what we do is all about light. And I just look at this and it's just gorgeous. I'm going to guess at the exposure. Yep. Oh, you can delete those.
Just check that, do a quick frame.
There we go. All right, look right here.
Really stunning.
No, it's awesome. This light is just amazing. Look at this. That's just. I have a white one. I'm going to have to buy a silver one now. See, that was Adorama's plan all along. Get me to do this class so I buy more equipment. This is very cool. Now, so this light, I mean, it's almost right directly at her. And it's so big, it's coming all around her. Let's raise it up just a little bit and angle it a little bit to see what the difference is. It's still, because it's so big and it's so close, we're what, 4 feet, 5 feet away? The light is just gonna wrap. And what I love, so you can see how it wraps. It's a silver, so it's pretty strong, and you can see that mostly in the shadow. But the smaller umbrella, look how the light is contained. That's the umbrella with the kicker, the white foam core. Man, look at the difference in the quality of light. I mean, even that looking off camera. There's your new Facebook profile photo. Look at. See, right? That's why she's sitting up. She's sat in the front row for that reason. So,
With no makeup on.
yeah, no makeup. So now let's see what happens. I don't want to ruin the studio here, and we're going to raise this up just a little bit. We good? All right. Let's see, that's subtle. And the reason I expected that, because the light is just so big. But see the shadow on the side of her nose? It actually surprises me it's that heavy. Now this was a little closer and more direct. By raising it, right? Just physically raising it, the umbrella's a little further away. Plus you notice I pushed it back just a little bit. I like that. That's really stunning. So let's try something. See, I get into experimental mode. Not that I blind our model or anything, but let's just see what happens when we get really close with a really big umbrella. Now it's interesting, isn't it? Look at the shadow in the background is gone, but it's also interesting. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, smart stuff. That's why I've got somebody here who knows what he's doing. The other thing I want you to notice, it's angled a little bit. It's not straight on like we had before. So look at the fall off. Even with an umbrella this size, the fall off you get. Now, you know, you can see it's angled a little bit. So the light is coming this way. And it's pretty even here. And the shadow is almost gone. I mean, you can see it a little bit. And that's what I'm talking about with your problem on the couch. Bigger light source, in tight, let it wrap around. You throw the shadow behind the person.
It's funny, when I look on this monitor, it looks very silver, but looking straight ahead of the umbrella looks black inside. So is the reflective quality of the umbrella itself?
This is probably the most incorrect monitor out of all.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, looking here, it looks like it's black inside the umbrella.
Well, that's just the way the light and the shadow, because the light, you can see my 7-inch reflector is throwing the light to here. It's not going all the way to the edge. Let's see if we have the room. Yeah. So does that change it a little bit for you? So now, and that's a very good point with go back to the slides I showed of just the light going through the umbrella, the hard on-camera flash going through the umbrella, and it only lit up part of the umbrella. Same thing here. This is so big that, you know, you have to be aware of where your light is hitting if you're going to take advantage of the full size of the umbrella. That's a great point. So in an umbrella this size, one speed light is almost like, why bother, right? So they make adapters that you can put 3 or 4 speed lights kind of in, not in tandem, not in tandem obviously, because there's 4 of them, but and it mounts like this, but you have 4 speed lights, so you can take advantage of a bigger umbrella, and it gives you more power. So you, I've done 2 before. I've never had to, and mostly the way I've done that is simply for the power and recycle time. It's easy, you know, they make little adapters that you can put multiple flashes on, or you just have your one flash on a light stand and you put another light stand up right next to it and put your flash on that one. So you can do it multiple ways. So, but see, this is the beauty of a big light. But the small, you know, the $8.95 umbrellas, the light coming from that is just beautiful, and you get to play with it and become a master of your umbrella. And it's an easy and inexpensive way as an introduction to doing better portraits than what you're doing with your flash on camera. So, yes, question, sir.
The white balance of your camera, what is it set at? What angle you have it?
Well, I'll tell you what, I shoot, now this is, I'm not shooting raw here because we're tethered and I want the images to come up quicker, but all the shooting I do is in raw format. Now what does the raw do for you? It collects the absolute most digital information that your camera can collect, which includes all the white balance stuff. So you can change it later to whatever you want it to be. So rarely does my camera leave auto white balance. Or for those of us at a certain age, average white band. But see, you got that, and nobody else did, because you and I are about the same age. So auto white balance, and then you can tweak it I use Lightroom. Some people use Capture One. There's other programs out there, obviously. You can tweak your white balance to whatever you want it to be. So, but good question. So for me, 90%, 95% of the time, it's just auto white balance. When do I use something? If I use something else, it's the custom function, and I might have a very difficult lighting situation. Back to multiple light sources. I once shot, I don't have the image with me, but once shot a doctor in a hospital. They had fluorescent lights, tungsten lights, daylight, and sodium vapor lights. And I'm like, I'm screwed. So I actually did a custom white balance off of a white card. So you take a white piece of paper or a white shirt or whatever, and you do and all the cameras have this now, you do a custom white balance off of the actual light hitting the person. So that's the only time that I leave auto white balance. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. So that's pretty much what I wanted to show you. I did have one other thing. Can I do one more thing?
No.
Oh, no. Seth says no. And for this, we're going to hold that for me, please. Yes, you got to hold that umbrella.
Okay.
So we're
Umbrella holder.
going to take this down because there's perfect. All right, and I didn't knock anything over. So think this through with me for a second. We were talking about how the light will spill, right? So almost everybody in the world will take an umbrella. And I mean, it makes sense, right? The umbrella has this nice little stick in the middle. It's even got a little point on the end. So it makes sense that you point the point at the person's face, right? But you don't have to do that. So because of and soft boxes can't do this. Well, to a little degree if it's big enough, but you can feather your umbrella and the quality of the light will change. It's very subtle, but the quality of the light will change. Feathering your umbrella will also affect everything else in the room. You have to remember, because there's spillover, and then if you are lighting your subject with basically the side of an umbrella, the rest of the light's going to go somewhere else. So you just have to think that one through and do your test shots. But so I'll often light people, instead of just direct like that, you feather the light. Now, it might be hard for you to see, but you know what we'll do? We'll take a couple shots and see if the subtlety shows up on these monitors. Okay. Come down to see if that's about right. Okay, so now it's pointed right directly at her, right? And that's nice. It's a beautiful light. The shadow, I'm not a big fan of shadows right behind, but you know, if I had her 6 feet away from the background, you know, that shadow would be down here and it wouldn't bother me. Yeah, that's a little dark for me. But now let's see what happens when we feather the light a little bit. See, it's very subtle and it's starting to compete with me with these. But now, number one, you're going to lose power, right? Because the bulk of your flash is going that direction, not that direction. I don't know. Can you see from where you're sitting? I'll take a picture, but just that little. So there's directly at her. And now feather it off. So the light gets softer. It moves your shadows. let's do, so it gets softer, so I have to lower, I have to compensate in the camera for that. Whoops, and I compensated too much, but yeah, it's too much. Let me,
That's the best.
that's your Facebook photo.
That's
The
it.
winner.
The winner is.
Yeah, that's better. So we'll skip over that one. But see the difference? It's really subtle, but feathering it softens the whole thing because you don't have the direct light hitting her face. Ignore the one in the middle. So just be aware that you can do that. In this case, I like it direct better. Yeah. But those are the type of little things you can do with umbrellas. It's not so easy to do that same thing with a softbox. Softbox gives you more control. Umbrellas will bleed light, but you can use that to your advantage sometimes. And it's all situational. You know, shooting in a studio setting, a little different than shooting in somebody's office or in your living room or trying to tell your niece or nephew to stand still in front of the couch, right? So it's all situational. Any questions? Yes?
When do you use the white card as opposed to a light gray card?
Yeah, some of you weren't here when I gave out a free gift to everybody. So here, we can just pass these back. This is my business card, but on the back is an 18% gray card, which is what she's talking about. So I know you have one, but just if you don't have one, pass it back, please. And feel free to take one. So
I'll give.
you can have an extra one if you want. That's fine.
That's smart.
So yeah, no, it's something fun. But so the gray card does two things for you. You can do a white balance off of it, although I prefer doing it off of something that's lighter. Like I do a white balance more off of something that's white. But what the classic about the 18% gray, which is what you're talking about, which is what on the back of the card, is an exposure value. So your camera, when your camera meters a scene, let's say you have your camera set, the settings are so it meters everything in your viewfinder. It's going to meter to an average, and that average, again, I don't do math, but whatever that calculation is, comes down to 18% gray. Okay? Sorry? Somebody said something? Who? I didn't hear.
Siri was like,
CD.
The phone.
Oh.
assistant.
Yeah, okay. So the 18% gray card would be a place for you to take a meter reading off a very specific lighting situation. So say, say you've got lights like this, and you only want to get an exposure for my face and not for the whole scene. You could take an exposure reading off an 18% gray card. Now, I gave you a gift. You all have an 18% gray card, but chances are you're not going to have that on you when you need it. So here's the trick, and I've used this for years and years and years, and it's never 100% because, right, we all have different skin tones. Everybody has a different skin tone. We're not all 18% gray. But you can take the back of your hand, and that will give you the exposure value of the back of your hand is roughly 18% gray. So, and my wife thinks I'm crazy. In a tough situation for lighting, I may just focus on my hand and get an exposure reading. I shoot everything in manual, so then your settings, but it's ballpark, right? So that's what the gray card's all about. Yes, sir. All right, yeah, follow up.
Because you said you used the white color, you used
Well, that's for white balance.
oh,
So this light, these lights are tungsten, so they're very warm. I mean, you can even see it, you know, it looks warm, very pleasing, looks like I've been out in the sun. And it's not, these lights feel warm. They're not the perfect color. Now, this is a whole nother seminar, 2-hour seminar on color balance and color correction. But yeah, okay, we'll plan that one. But you can get a color chart, and if any images you take are going to go to be printed, this is very important. If you shoot fashion, it's very important because, you know, the J. Crew made this color sweater. They want that sweater to be right in the photograph. If your color balance isn't correct, then according to your lights and your computer and your printer and everything else, all balanced and calibrated, they're not going to be very happy with you if you're doing a job for them. They want that cerulean blue sweater to be cerulean blue. They don't want it to be sky blue. So we're talking different things. All right, yes, sir.
In which situation you use the light meter? Because you said you...
Yeah, so the question is, when do I use a light meter? And I don't use a light meter much anymore. I have multiple light meters, but I've gotten to the point in my career where I can guesstimate an exposure pretty good, and then you adjust according to what you see on your screen, and you get to know your cameras, and you know, you calibrate everything, and I don't know. So to answer your question, I don't use a light meter a lot. I mean, I brought a light meter and we don't really have the time to get into it because it's rather involved and involves math, but we could set up an umbrella 6 feet away from the background. We could put a tape measure across and measure out in feet and take light meter readings to see the fall off from the center to the edge. Now, I'll tell you, because I've done the test before, generally on a 48-inch umbrella from center to the edge, you'll get rough, you know, and each umbrella is different, right? But it'll be roughly 3/4 of a stop fall off 6 feet out on a white umbrella. Now, a silver has a little bit bigger coverage, but the fall off goes faster. So they're, like I said, they're all different, and there's too many to know. So if you're going to get into shooting with umbrellas, that might be a fun test to do on a rainy Saturday. You know, just kind of set it up and just see the fall off of your light source through your umbrella. Yes, sir.
When you're shooting single portraits now, how do the rules change when you have more than one person in a group of family shots?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the question was, and let me see, I thought that I put a picture in here of this. Let me see if I have an example. So again, it's not letting me move. I thought I had another picture in here that was a group of 7 people all shot with an umbrella, but the light source is further away. I was out in a public space, so I couldn't have a big umbrella. Normally, the bigger the group, the bigger the umbrella, right? Because you want a bigger throw of light. In this case, is shooting in a public space. I couldn't have a big umbrella, so I had a 48-inch umbrella, white, shoot through. So I had to jack my power up a little bit because the umbrella was probably 20 feet away from the subjects. But from that far of a distance, the light spreads enough. But of course, that big of a distance, the light becomes, in effect, smaller. So it becomes a little more contrasty. So you can do it. It's just there's always a give and take in lighting, and mainly that's because, again, math, light ratios, light falls off at an inverse proportion. So you've got to be aware of that when you're lighting something. Mostly for us, it matters in power. I mean, you do have to be aware of the contrast, but in a group photo, that's not your worst problem. Okay, any other questions?
You know that shot in the subway?
Yeah.
The train is slowed down, so there's a little bit of
Blur, yeah.
Yeah. What are the settings on that shot? Do you know?
Oh, I don't. The question was the shot in the subway, the train is blurred. Well, number one, the trains move pretty fast. We've all been in the subway, and when they first come in, they're moving pretty good. I don't remember.
Shutter speed approximately.
Yeah, I don't remember. It might be a 30th of a second. Also in the subway, I'm not shooting on a tripod, but I did have a monopod. So, a tripod in Times Square, either above ground or underground, is going to get you flagged really quickly. The cops will be all over you, and rightfully so. I understand it. But a monopod you can get away with because, they don't know what that is. But probably about a 30th second, because I don't want to get any blur on the person. And a corporate CEO is not a model. He can't stand still the way a model can. So that's probably what that is.
Freezes the guy, right? Anyway.
Yeah, but you don't want the edges blurring. So, all right. Let's see. We have, I think we have time. Sir, what time is it, Perry? We got time for one more question. Anybody have a question? No, great. Okay. All right. Yes.
Could you recommend me any course or any, I don't know if you are giving classes or something like that?
I'm sorry. Recommend what?
Courses, I don't know, classes, photography classes.
For shooting people with glasses?
Yeah, maybe a place who give classes.
So, some glasses. The question is, glasses. I'm sorry, I went to glasses because, think about glasses, right? They always have a reflection. And how do you deal with, if you're shooting somebody with an umbrella, how do you get rid of that reflection? You raise the umbrella, right? But classes, yes. So I'm the lead instructor, senior instructor for New York City Digital Photography Workshops. And if I could get this PowerPoint working, it says that we do classes and private instructions on anything you want. I think our group, we have multiple instructors, but I think we cover 120 different, yeah, so here, well, I just screwed it up again. Oh, play. Sorry. See, I couldn't do this without Seth. So, so if you want to write this down real quick, if you're interested in any instruction about any topic, our instructors cover 130 different topics. We've got one guy who does a weekend boot camp on Lightroom. It's excellent. I've taken it myself. It's just really great. But there's a $25 off coupon. And here at the end of I had some umbrellas. Let's see if I have that. No, oh yeah, there's that group shot. So you asked about the group photo. So that's done.
Umbrella?
That's done with one umbrella. One is I think it's a 48-inch umbrella. So, because again, public space, I couldn't have the big, huge 48-inch white shoot through. And then I put a little thing in here to say questions. And thank you to Adorama for having us. I mean, it's great. I'm glad you could be here this evening. Thank you very much. And check out some of the classes. You can go to NYC. It stands for New York City Digital Photography Workshops, but it's nycdpw.com. And now go get some umbrellas and play and have fun. And because for me, photography, I've been doing this my whole life. I still love what I do, and that's what's great about photography. We can shoot what we want, when we want, play with things, experiment, and just have fun. So have fun with it. I hope you get some umbrellas and play.